Welcome to the Jaco Report. I'm Charles Jaco. Will Missouri still have a safe, legal place to have an abortion, or will the state of Missouri shut it down over what they call a licensing dispute? We're going to look at that today, along with the ACLU's action against Missouri's strict new anti-abortion law that bans abortion after 8 weeks and provides neither a rape nor an incest exception. The ACLU wants to put a constitutional amendment protecting abortion rights on the statewide ballot in 2020. To talk about that, we're joined by Tony Rothert. He's legal director of the ACLU Missouri, and to discuss the future of abortion access in Missouri, we're also joined by Angie Postal. She's vice president of policy, education, and community engagement for Planned Parenthood here in St. Louis. Welcome to you both. Thank you very much for coming in. Angie, let me start with you. As of this taping, we're not sure how the judge is going to rule. In the restraining order, you guys have requested to stop the state from questioning doctors who are affiliated with the clinic. But worst case scenario, if the Planned Parenthood clinic here has to stop offering abortion services, what happens to the women who come here? Will you guys say, well, there are 2 clinics right across the river in Illinois? I mean, what are the logistics of that? How will that work?
Sure. Thanks for that question. A lot of our patients are really worried about that, and I've been fielding a lot of calls this week from women who are afraid that either they could get arrested if they have an abortion or that it just won't be accessible to them. What's happened here, and we're prepared for this because Governor Parson and his health department have weaponized the inspections process over the course of several years, and they keep moving the goalpost. So we will comply, we will do everything we can, bend over backwards, to make sure that we can keep our license to take care of people who need us, and then they'll move the goalpost on us. So we were prepared. So we've been working with our provider in Fairview Heights, Illinois. We have an abortion provider that Planned Parenthood operates. We provide medication abortion there. So we've been working with them and with Hope Clinic for Women in Granite City. So should our license expire tomorrow, on Saturday, we'll be working hard to make sure that Missourians who need abortion can get to Illinois and get a safe abortion.
What is the geographic range of people who come to your clinic?
I wish I could. Many states. So in Missouri, we are the only abortion provider. So that means women from Southwest Missouri come to us, Southeast Missouri, Northwest Missouri, Northeast Missouri. Some women are driving many hours. We also do see patients from other states that come here, but I can't tell you, I'm not sure exactly how many states.
But providing access across the river in Illinois sounds simple enough for those of us who live here in St. Louis. It's as close as any other suburb. But for a woman who's coming from Springfield or Rolla or Kirksville or over by Kansas City or someplace else, that's going to be daunting. That's yet another step they're going to have to go through.
You're absolutely right. And I see this as really connected to the fact that Governor Parson signed a nearly total abortion ban just a few days before we had to file the suit to maintain our license. His goal, and it has been his goal, his entire political career, is to make safe abortion inaccessible in Missouri. And no one should have to leave their state to get an abortion that's safe in the United States of America.
Now, some conservative media have gotten what they claim is the laundry list of deficiencies, quote, close quote, the Department of Health and Senior Services found with the abortion facility here, including some of the specifics, as I recall, were disposable needles that were syringes that were being reused, equipment that was dirty, that sort of thing. A very, long list of very specific stuff. Is that true? I mean, how does that fit into the narrative here? Were you guys aware of this, or is this made up, or what?
We get our deficiency reports just like any healthcare provider, and I want to say right off the top, we believe in providing the best healthcare we can. And so we're doing everything we can to comply with the state so that we can provide that healthcare. Those specific allegations are not true. The things the state is withholding our license for specifically are for one of the deficiencies that we had to address was not providing a pelvic exam for a medication abortion. That means that our doctors would have to put their fingers inside a woman's vagina when it's not medically indicated. So we've started providing those in Illinois instead of Missouri. So we complied with that.
And the reason behind that law is?
To make it harder to get an abortion in Missouri, to deter women from accessing abortion in Missouri, to deter providers from providing abortion in Missouri.
Now, let's assume the clinic remains open. Yet the Missouri law says that after the embryo is gestated for 8 weeks, abortion is illegal. What happens if a woman comes to you and says, I think I'm 9 weeks pregnant?
The same thing that'll happen if we lose our license. We'll work with our providers in Illinois to make sure that woman has access to abortion. I'll tell you a woman who called me the day the governor signed the bill. A woman called and was routed to me because her fear was that she would be arrested if she had an abortion. And I'm a mom, and in the background I could hear a small kid. I know the sound of a kid that's around 1 or 2, little toddler, making noise. This woman was in tears, and she told me that her partner was abusive, and she needed to save her life and her child's life. Here's my fear. We will do everything, and I told this woman, I said, abortion's not illegal yet, and we can connect you to care in Illinois should you not be able to get one here. And she didn't share with me where she was from, so she could have been anywhere. The thing that scares me is that that woman, if she hears that abortion is illegal in Missouri, she might not be following the news and realize it's still legal in Illinois. She might be forced to stay with that man who hurts her and her child because she doesn't think she can access a safe abortion in this state.
Tony, I want to switch to you for a moment. It surprised me when the ACLU in a lot of other states, Alabama, Mississippi, has gone to federal court almost as soon as the laws were passed saying we're challenging the constitutionality. Here in Missouri, at least out of the gate, you guys haven't done that. Instead, you filed a petition with the state to get clearance to gather signatures to put protections for abortion rights on the Missouri ballot in 2020. Explain to me the thinking behind that. Why go that route first rather than go straight to federal court?
Well, they are not, it's not an either or thing. The fact that we are pursuing going to the ballot doesn't mean that there won't be a lawsuit over this case if it does go into, or this statute, if it does go into effect in a few months at the end of August. But the Missouri legislature and the governor have gone way beyond what Missourians support with this bill. Even calling it an 8-week ban is a bit of a misnomer because we have a 72-hour waiting period. And if you're a minor who needs a judicial bypass, you need to add another week on that. So it's really effectively almost a ban on abortion. And Missourians don't support that. So one option is to go to the voters and let the voters tell the legislature no, that this is too far, this is not something a majority of Missourians support.
Now, the common political belief is that Missouri is a deep, deep red state and that something like this would be doomed to fail. What do you think?
Well, the polling doesn't show that. Most Missourians do not want to see Roe versus Wade overturned. They don't want to make abortion illegal in all cases. Missouri is a conservative state. There is a lot of support for restrictions that I believe are not medically necessary and that are unconstitutional. There's support for some of those, but there is not a support for a ban on abortion.
Any idea what the language might be of any petition, any ballot initiative?
Well, what's been submitted so far is a proposed referendum to repeal the law that was signed by the governor last week. So the Secretary of State chooses the language, but it's fairly limited his discretion on what to say.
So this ballot initiative wouldn't put any new language guaranteeing abortion rights into the Constitution. It would merely repeal the law that's been passed.
Well, that is an option too, to put on affirmative rights and add them to our Constitution here in this state. But the one that's been submitted so far is a referendum that would repeal the law that was signed last week.
And you're saying that the ACLU still may go to federal court?
Yeah, absolutely. We are, the ACLU, along with many others, are committed to making sure that abortion remains safe and legal in Missouri. We do not want Missouri to become the first state without abortion, and that's the emergency right now. But we also don't want to be the second, third, fourth, or fifth state without abortion either. We will explore all the options.
Angie, beyond restricting abortion, The rhetoric we've heard from the so-called pro-life side has been downright nasty. I would think of a state representative from St. Charles who claimed in a tweet that women were falsely claiming rape just so they could have abortions a few days before their due date. Another state representative from Southeast Missouri claimed on the floor of the House that most rapes are, quote, consensual. What do you make of that? It seems to me that they're not only attacking abortion, an issue over which America is very deeply divided, but that they are directly attacking women by saying things that are just patently untrue and are lies. But what are you to make of that when you have state lawmakers who are regularly saying things like that? What's that indicate to you?
I think it's really scary, and I think it sets a tone that makes Missourians feel unsafe. And I think it's far outside the, like Tony was saying, it's far outside where most Missourians are on this issue. When we do polls on this issue, we find that most Missourians, regardless of if they call themselves pro-choice or pro-life, don't want to see abortion outlawed in America, and they don't want to see it in the hands of the government instead of, you know, in the hands of the women and their families who find themselves in that situation.
Well, Tony, as a lawyer, I want to ask you about the idea of constitutional conservatism. That is, in Missouri, you hear a lot about government getting out of people's business. For example, regulating deadly firearms is beyond the government's scope and an impingement on freedom. Just this last session, they got rid of a law mandating motorcycle helmets, saying that was an overreach on the part of the government, and yet they are willing to insert the government figuratively, if not literally, inside a woman's body to prevent abortion. My question is, in terms of constitutional philosophy here, what's going on? Are the people who are talking about abortion merely lying hypocrites, or is there something else going on here that I'm missing with this amazing inconsistency?
Well, I think there's a divide, even amongst those people who call themselves pro-life. There's a division on what they think the limits should be. And some people are more libertarian, and there's a strong libertarian history in Missouri of keeping the government out of our lives and our most private decisions. And there are some people who, occasionally go off script, who really are about controlling women and their autonomy. And so some people have been slipping up and saying their truth lately. We've been going for years pretending that restrictions on abortion are really about protecting women's health. That was never true, but that was a way to pretend we weren't just letting the government into folks' lives. And all these, they should just stop talking about rape. It never works, but it's really an effort to divide women up. They're the good women and the bad women, and maybe the good women who did nothing wrong and were raped should be allowed to have access to abortion, when the fact of the matter is a woman should have access to abortion.
A question for both of you, and I don't really care who answers it, but if you both say that support for abortion rights is deeper in Missouri than most people are aware of, yet you have an overwhelming supermajority in both houses of the legislature that voted for this bill. You have flame-throwing rhetoric that's being issued in public by elected officials. You have a governor who's been very hard case about this, and there seem to be no electoral repercussions. My question would be, if the support for abortion rights is that deep, wouldn't one imagine that people who say stuff like this, or people who vote for laws like this, would have been kicked out already or are in danger of being kicked out? Yet they seem to think that they're not, and they're perfectly safe by doing this. Right. Both of them can't be true.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing is the Missouri legislative districts have been gerrymandered in such a way that they don't represent the true makeup of Missouri politically. We're a pretty evenly divided state, not more Republican than Democrat, but pretty evenly divided. But the legislature is 2/3 Republican, and that's because of the way the districts were drawn. And that makes legislators not accountable. I think that we'll see, they also haven't they've been playing this game that we're just doing restrictions for women's health for so long, and now that they've shown their cards and that they're really going to ban abortion, I think that you will see repercussions for at least some legislators.
Angie, same question for you. I mean, why no political pushback? And it's not just this vote. We've seen this train coming down the tracks for years, and yet there have been almost zero political repercussions for the far right-wing people who are members of the Missouri legislature. I mean, is it all gerrymandering, or is the opposition to abortion rights maybe a little deeper than you'd like to think?
I would say that it's the gerrymandering. For the vast majority of our legislators, the only race that matters to them is their Republican primary, and that's a very small percentage of the electorate that are electing the majority of our state representatives and state senators.
Because no Democrats running against these people in a lot of cases, or Democrats don't have a chance. But again, that gets back to the basic question. If through gerrymandering and voter ID and other things, they've locked in these districts, it would seem to me then that you could have this radical social legislation, these extremist laws continue almost ad infinitum because there's not going to be anybody to stop them.
I do think it is a matter of two things: getting fair district lines, so that for many issues, I think that as a voter, as a voter in Missouri, I want district lines that allow my vote to matter, whether I'm a Democrat or a Republican. So that's one thing. But also, I think with them showing their hand with these extreme abortion bans that don't include exceptions for rape or incest, I think that some of the people who maybe before weren't speaking out are going to take to the streets and are going to start taking a stand on this issue.
You anticipated my next question, which is a lot of the people, at least who were featured in the photo ops for this, were Republican women. Do you think that there is going to be a price to be paid, specifically by female voters who might be nominally Republican but are outraged about this? Or do you think la-di-da, by the time the 2020 elections come around, it'll be a non-issue?
I think we saw in the 2018 elections across the country, suburban, more moderate women making a big difference in terms of congressional districts. So I think we could see that in Missouri in 2020.
But again, that covers congressional districts, and we're talking about the state legislature. It seems like, I mean, are we in a position where these folks are going to be running the state legislature in perpetuity with these kind of laws? If there's this, and I hate to keep hammering at it, but if there's no political price to be paid, they can pass these kind of laws again and again all day long.
I think when we get fairer district lines in Missouri, that will play a big part. But I also think with the extreme nature of their comments and of their actions, and the fact that they are literally trying to end access to safe abortion in Missouri. I just came from a rally with thousands of people. Last week, I was at a rally with thousands of people. And I was talking to people and finding people that came from all over the state. It wasn't just St. Louisans. I met somebody from St. Genevieve. Met somebody from Springfield, Missouri. And so I think we are getting people coming out that this is the first time they've taken action on this issue.
Tony, do you get that feeling that there could be a sea change going on because of this, or do you think that may just be whistling past the graveyard, given that it is Missouri after all?
Well, I'm hopeful. I think Missouri, the politics are complicated on abortion, and the majority in the legislature has ignored that complication, or that now, and just kind of pretended like the state feels all one way. And I expect that there'll be some blowback to that. But it's also, folks on our side need to do a better job of encouraging people to talk to women, to talk to doctors, to learn why people have abortions, and to try to peel back some of that false rhetoric that's been used to prop up laws like the Missouri legislature's been passing.
Final question. How much of this is based in religion, do you think? Or how much of this is using religion as a smokescreen to cover the feelings on this, because you find a lot of people, I would call them the Phyllis Schlafly wing of the Republican Party, who are very strong traditional Catholics, don't particularly care for the current Pope, and think abortion should be illegal in all cases. Others, you wonder how much of the scripture they're quoting is actually real. I mean, what's your feeling? Is this a deeply held religious belief on the part of a lot of pro-life people, or do you think that's just a cover for some of them?
I don't want to speak on behalf of religious people, but I do know that religious people aren't a monolith, and there's many religious people that support access to safe abortion because they see the dignity of women, and they don't want to see women and girls subject to unsafe abortions like they were before 1973.
Tony?
Yeah, abortion's a complicated issue for people, and some people reach where they're going based on religion, and some people don't. And I don't think that we can group people together and judge them, just as I don't think we can judge why people have abortions just by talking to one or two people. I think it's complicated, and in Missouri it's extra complicated.
Tony Rothert, Angie Postal, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks to them, and our thanks to you. We hope to see you back here next week for another edition of the Jaco Report. See you then.